Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Just an Opinion. As a horror film fan, I love my monster movies. I am particularly fond of the Universal monster movies from the 1930s until the 1950s. As far as tone, they went from really scary to being really funny, but they were always enjoyable. Once the monsters were established in their standalone films, some of the sequels were actually crossovers featuring two or more monsters. A monster mashup, as I like to call it. Okay, I swear no pun intended, but Universal Pictures had its own universe. A monster universe. They would even break the continuity established in one monster storyline for the sake of combining it with another. Many actors had repeat performances, and sometimes they mixed and matched the roles. The biggest names being Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and Lon Chaney Jr. It truly was a golden age in monster films, and these monsters lead such interesting lives. In later years, nearly every monster movie was remade, sometimes more times than necessary, to be honest. But they were mostly standalone features. A few years ago, Universal Pictures announced that they were planning a new monster cinematic universe dubbed the Dark Universe. I was ecstatic at this announcement. They announced The Bride of Frankenstein with Javier Bardem, The Invisible Man with Johnny Depp, and it would all be kicked off by The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise? Okay, interesting, but I'll give it a shot. Anyhow, The Mummy was released, and it was a disappointment for both fans and the box office. So the Dark Universe idea was dropped indefinitely, just as it got started. While it is a shame that this idea never came to fruition, there are some really good monster mashup movies out there, so I'm going to rank them. My list will only focus on the main Universal monster players, so I might be missing a few, but hey, this is just an opinion. I'm going to kick the list off with a special mention for Dracula Untold. Rumor has it that when the Dark Universe was announced, that they were going to do some reshoots for this movie for some upcoming films. That didn't happen. And then there were rumors that Luke Evans would reprise his role of Dracula in the upcoming entries. With that, we'll never know. But if that's the direction they were going in, I dig it. I thought this was an entertaining and fascinating origin story to the King of the Monsters. I also appreciated the historical aspect of the film. Plus, there was some real depth to the Vlad and Dracula character brilliantly portrayed by Evans.
I now know hell is real. So I know there's a heaven. Neither this world or the next shall keep us apart. I will honor your sacrifice, and I vow that our son shall be safe.
I love the dedication that he had to his people and the conflict within him, as he has a means to save everyone's life, but at the risk of losing his own soul.
Drink. You will have a taste of my power. The strength of 100 men. The speed of a falling star. Dominion over the night and all its creatures. To see and hear through their senses.
Plus, Charles Dance was great in this film as the Elder Vampire. While not a monster mashup, I think there was some real potential here. By adding a few scenes to tease and foreshadow a connection with forthcoming films, I think this film really could have kicked off the Dark Universe better than... Number 7 is The Mummy. While it was supposed to kick off the Dark Universe, it ended up actually being its downfall. Now let me say, I do really like Tom Cruise. Magnolia, Cocktail, Top Gun, Vanilla Sky. The list goes on and on for his accolades. But his latest body of work is mostly action and stunts. That cast a huge shadow over this film and actually hurt the tone of it. I dare say that at times I felt like I was watching Mission Impossible with monsters for the very elaborate stunt work and choreography.
What the hell is that?
Parachute! Parachute!
The main plot is very similar to previous Mummy films. Not a bad thing per se, but just noticeable. It was brief, but I did love the teasers of the expanded universe that they were setting up. I also enjoyed the reveal that there was a secret society dedicated to fighting against monsters. on a side note, Russell Crowe was pretty good as the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde character. But overall, the film was a disappointing CGI action-adventure romp. I am curious to see how this would have tied into the next film, but I guess we'll never know. Number 6 is Van Helsing. I am very torn on this film. It relies too much on CGI, and I think director Stephen Sommers was trying to make Van Helsing in the image of Indiana Jones. I felt like he did the same thing with Brendan Fraser in the late 90s Mummy franchise. It's okay that this film goes more in the direction of action-adventure, but the tone gets muddled in the process. The story is original and fleshed out, but the details derail the momentum. For example, Dracula's minions look more like scary Jawas, and the plot involving the birthing of his children, well, it just kind of made me think of Gremlins. On the plus side, Hugh Jackman is great in this role, and he has great chemistry with Kate Beckinsale.
Next time, stay close. You're no good to me dead.
Well, I'll say this for you. You've got courage. He's the first one to kill a vampire in over 100 years. I'd say that's earned him a drink.
As a fan of the original Universal monster movies, I did appreciate the nods that this film gave to the classics, such as the beginning with the supposed demise of Frankenstein, and even little details like the rhyme for the Wolfman. So in the end, I would just say that this film was okay, because it was just so unbalanced. But with that, I thought it had great potential, and it really could have been so much better. Number 5 is Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. This is the first time that Universal Pictures did a crossover with two of its main monsters. It also served as a sequel to both respective franchises. The Wolfman's plight was tragic, unable to control his monster urges. Upon his resurrection, he is looking for a cure to his condition, but if that's not available, he's actually seeking out his ultimate demise. You really feel sympathy for the man since he has such a good conscience.
It's not in my power to help you.
You're the only one that understands. Nobody else in the world will believe me. Now I must go on living. There's no hope for me to die.
It's actually surreal to see the Wolfman, played by Lon Chaney Jr., seeking out help from the Frankenstein monster, who was played by Bela Lugosi in this entry.
Dr. Frankenstein must have kept records. A diary. You know where it is. Show me.
Both were tragically condemned to being monsters due to circumstances beyond their control. A solution is presented by a human doctor that could cure both monsters. A theme long presented in these monster movies is scientific curiosity leading to either corruption or disastrous results. Unfortunately, this is the case, as the experiment goes wrong, leading to an inevitable melee between the two monsters. A flood purposely caused by the townspeople to trap the two monsters leads to the end of the film and their ultimate incarceration and eventual frozen states. Number 4 is House of Frankenstein. In this entry, it's ultimately the humans that are the true monsters in this film, with their selfishness and desire for revenge by any means necessary. The humans are Dr. Niemann, played by Boris Karloff, and his assistant Daniel. They use and manipulate the monsters to help with their plight. The first monster in their scheme was Dracula.
Do as I ask, and I will serve you. I will protect the earth upon which you lie, so that before sunrise, your coffin will always be ready for you.
For that, I will do whatever you wish.
But he makes a quick exit from the film. Ultimately, Dr. Niemann is seeking out the Frankenstein monster to really cement his revenge, But along the way, he discovers the Wolfman too. Both were frozen after their encounter in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Like always, the Wolfman, played by Lon Chaney Jr. again, is seeking out a cure for his ailment, and Dr. Neiman promises this cure in exchange for his help. It's at this point that human emotions conflict with monster urges, and upon the revival of the Frankenstein monster, it leads to disaster for everyone. Undying love, the pursuit of power, and betrayal lead to the deaths of everyone involved. Well, do the monsters really stay dead? Number 3 is House of Dracula. This film picks up after the events from House of Frankenstein, and Dracula is a much bigger focal point of the movie. And once again, we have monsters seeking out a cure for their condition from a human doctor. This time around, the doctor does seem pure, as he does see everything from a medical versus a supernatural perspective. For this, he actually relies on blood transfusions to cure Dracula.
Your new theory being?
An examination of your blood reveals the presence of a peculiar parasite, a form with which I'm completely unfamiliar. It's possible that it may have something to do with your problem.
And for the Wolfman, once again played by Lon Chaney Jr., he sees brain pressure as the problem versus the full moon igniting his monstrous urges. He does actually manage to cure him, but Dracula is a different story. He actually had evil intentions and reverses the blood transfusion so that his blood goes into Dr. Edelman, turning him into a monster resembling a Jekyll and Hyde type character.
Because you're afraid I'm going to kill you.
Kill me? Doctor!
Yes. You've seen what's happened to your old friend. He doesn't want anybody but himself to know about that.
No, Doctor! I will never tell.
That's right, Siegfried. You never will.
Help!
After Dracula is out of the picture, there is a reversal of roles. Larry Talbot, no longer the Wolfman, is now hunting the monster version of Dr. Edelman. I really liked this switch, as the Universal monsters at their core were typically good people until the monster took over. Number 2 is Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. At this point in time, the Universal monster movies were winding down, but Abbott and Costello breathed some new life into the monster features with yet another crossover. Now, to be fair, this is more so an Abbott and Costello comedy versus a monster movie. But it is so brilliant, as the monsters played so well into the story, serving up more laughs than scares. Lon Chaney Jr. returns, playing the Wolfman again, and he's trying to warn Bud and Lou of the impending danger of the forthcoming shipments to their wax museum. In the shipment contains the real Dracula, played again by Bela Lugosi, and the Frankenstein monster. Hilarity ensues as Bud and Lou are completely oblivious to their part in the monster scheme, alongside numerous scares and funny chase scenes. The climax comes with a masquerade ball, leading to a monster melee between Dracula and the Wolfman. But in the end, with all the monsters gone, Bud and Lou feel that they have nothing to worry about.
Oh, relax. Now that we've seen the last of Dracula, the Wolfman and the monster, there's nobody to frighten us anymore.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping to get in on the excitement.
Who said that?
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Invisible Man.
This film served as the launching pad for several more Abbott and Costello Meet the Monster movies, but this was no doubt the strongest entry. Number 1 is The Monster Squad. Now, this was not a Universal Pictures release, but I argue that this is the strongest monster mashup film. Everything just seemed to click with this movie. It's very meta, as the members of the Monster Squad love monster movies, but soon find themselves in their worst nightmare fighting these actual monsters. Or perhaps it's their greatest fantasy. The movie blurs the line between being kid-friendly and incorporating some really scary moments. As far as the kids, they were all brilliantly cast, each original and funny, but not obnoxiously so. And you really find yourself rooting for them. Even as an adult, well, at least age-wise, I still get pumped watching this montage scene. For the monsters, you get the standard Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Frankenstein monster, but I was really happy that they added the mummy and the creature from the Black Lagoon into the fold. Dracula was a master manipulator, having control over the latter two, but there was much conflict amongst the Wolfman and the Frankenstein monster especially. Dracula's performance was cold, suave, and brilliant. I dare say he is one of the better performers in this role.
Give me the amulet, you bitch!
An unexpected and honestly tear-jerking bright spot of this film was the relationship that the Frankenstein monster formed with the Monster Squad, especially the adorable Phoebe. I love this film and feel it is really underrated, but I do love the cult following it has, as it feels more special, like it belongs to me and those who love it. While the dark universe may be a concept of the past, I remain optimistic that monsters never remain dead, so there's always hope. Thank you so much for watching, and please do leave a comment. I'll be back soon, but this time I'm going to shift the focus to teenage films from the 1980s. I hope you check it out. Until then, stay scared and rock until you drop.
They're drenched in blood or caked with mud. You yell and scream when one of them arrives. There is no denying monsters lead such interesting lives. They live in ooze, they've paid their dues. No brothers, sisters, moms, or dads, or wives. Honest, I'm not lying. Monsters lead such interesting lives. When you see them coming down the street, you better not have weights tied to your feet. They'll steal